Hey, good afternoon. Scott McGuire, YP president here. Appreciate all of you jumping on today. It sounds like we have a little under 170 registered, so a great turnout. We're excited for our speaker today, Michael Leytem. I'd like to first just go through real quick and thank our ultimate sponsors, Diamond Joe Casino, Dubuque Bank and Trust, Holiday Inn, Hotel Julian, IBM Medical Associates, Midwest One Bank, Q Casino, TAG Communication, and TH Media. Our silver partners also Cottingham and Butler, Dupaco, Fidelity Bank, Forge Social, Grand River Center, John Deere, Platinum Supplemental Insurance, Cartograph, Five Flags, Tyson's, Green State Credit Union, IIW, McGraw-Hill Education, Collins Community Credit Union, DuTrack, and Kunkel and Associates. So thank you to all of you guys. I'll go through a quick bio with Michael here. I know he's going to go through some of that, so I'll give you kind of just an overhaul on that. But Michael's been a leadership coach and talent management consultant for nearly a decade. He has worked with hundreds of Fortune 500 leaders to customize talent strategies, leadership solutions, and coaching to promote personal and professional growth. Postgraduate, Michael began his career working for Sidetrain as a full-time employee, where he was able to gain valuable experience observing, providing feedback, and coaching leaders of all levels. Following his tenure at Sidetrain, Michael joined KPMG's People and Change practice, where he served as a manager of talent management. During his time at KPMG, Michael was able to gain a better understanding of unique drivers and customized solutions that yields the greatest impact for businesses in the digital age. Michael also mentioned that his book that he was working on is now available, and I know he'll go into that further. We also have Emma here. Emma is working as an intern with Michael this summer. So we welcome you. I'll turn it over to you, and we appreciate you coming to speak with us today.
Well, thanks a lot, Scott. I really appreciate the opportunity, and I'm just really grateful to get to connect back to the community that I'm from, originally being from Cascade, Iowa, and YPs are my favorite crowd. I happen to be a YP myself, but I just love the energy that young people have toward leadership, and especially right now of all time. So super excited to be here. One thing I wanted to kick off by asking people who are listening today is to feel free to jot down quotes or take some screenshots. I'm looking to build some momentum. This is part of my virtual book tour. I was going to be having an in-person book tour, but obviously things have changed quite drastically. With that being said, if there's anything that you really like or resonated with you today, make sure to try and capture that, post it on your Instagram stories, Facebook stories, or what have you. All that exposure helps me build momentum and keep working towards my goals with this book launch. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So right off the bat, I want this to be a very interactive session. I want you all to be able to really feel free, like you can use the chat box feature, and I want you to feel like you can make your voice be heard. With that being said, I want to start by kicking things off with a series of polling questions. So I have 3 questions. I'm going to ask Justine to help me with pulling those up now.
All right, first poll is up. I currently consider myself a leader, true or false?
Okay, we got some answers coming in, kind of at an 80-20 split so far. Give it another couple.
Just let me know when you want me to close the poll.
That seems about good. So we're at 78-22. Okay, I'm going to elaborate on this point down the road, but 78-22. Let's go to the next polling question.
Why are you interested in leadership as a YP?
So the options we have: I want to expand my reach and make a difference. It's the next logical step in my career path. It would allow me to earn more. I want to develop and coach others, or maybe there's an other reason that's not listed. So we have responses coming in here. Seems like the top one is I want to expand my reach and make a difference. that's definitely a theme we see with millennials in particular. Part of this YP crowd is really wanting to be driven by passion-driven work and purpose-driven work, really. Second choice is I want to develop and coach others, and I'm glad to see that one too, because that's such a huge part of leadership. So that's good. And then 15%, it's my next logical step, and then 5% allows me to earn more money. Nothing wrong with earning more money if you're taking on more responsibility. So very, very cool. Justine, let's go to the next one.
The leaders at my current company have communicated a vision that motivates me. True or false?
Be honest with this one. Do you feel motivated by the vision that leaders are putting out in your organization?
The answers are anonymous.
Yeah, we probably should have started with that, but yeah. All right, again, we kind of have an 80-20 split here, so that's good. That's a really high number that 80% of you all feel like there is a vision that you can really get behind in your organization, but that 20%, you know, 1 in every 5 people aren't necessarily feeling that way. So, all right, very, very cool. Thanks for interacting, and now I'm gonna pull up the presenter view again. Let's hide that, okay. So, Scott was very gracious enough to give me a little bit of an intro, but I want to even expand upon that a little bit further, talk about my journey first, my roots being in Iowa, obviously, but then also some of my career experience and how I ended up launching my own business and getting into the position that I am today. So I'm from Cascade, Iowa, small town, you all probably know where it's at, 2,000 people, 1 stoplight. Had a great childhood there, learned a lot of great things, really developed a passion for the outdoors, fishing in the river downtown, and had on my mom's side, there's a big farming element to that side of the family too, so enjoying the outdoors was a big piece of that. After graduating high school there, I went down to the University of Iowa. I'm a huge Hawkeye fan. I'm sorry if there's any Cyclone fans on here, but I'm a big Hawkeye. I bleed black and gold. With that being said, I studied psychology and sociology at the University of Iowa. It's funny enough that a lot of people, when I was studying, they were interested. They're saying, Michael, you're studying psychology. What kind of job are you going to get with that? And these were people who were more in the quote unquote hard sciences, or they were getting business degrees. And it's funny because those same individuals now are the ones who are calling me up and sending me a message saying, Michael, I'm in a leadership position now. How the heck do I lead people? And I've kind of had that full 360 of them understanding, like, all right, understanding people and the way things work and the way organizations are set up. It's a little more complicated than maybe I once thought earlier in my career. So after being down in Iowa City, I met my wife, I should mention there too, down in Iowa City. And we are expecting our first child. So that's a little bit of a side note for you all, but it was a great time down there. But I wanted to move on and expand both my reach and also my knowledge of organizational psychology. The timing of this all happened right around 2009. So it was the height of the economic recession. Maybe some of you all can relate if you're just graduating from college now. It's pretty tough to get a job. It was tough then to get a job too. So I decided I'll go get my master's degree, give it 2 years, see if the economy kind of picks back up. And so there I studied industrial organizational psychology. I also was able to teach intro to psychology to 150 students. So it was good to get that experience and exposure. And as part of that experience, I needed to complete an internship. And I took an internship out in Canton, Ohio with a company called C.A.T.H, as Scott mentioned, and they specialized in leadership development and coaching. So I took an internship out there, and I remember my wife, my now wife, Alicia, she was my fiance at the time, she said, Michael, we are not moving to Ohio. She was already anticipating that after the internship, I would get a job offer. And I said, it's just an internship, don't worry about it. Well, sure enough, we ended up moving to Ohio. So I started my career out there. We didn't really know anyone other than who we worked with out there. It was a 10-hour drive away from home, but we were young, we just got married, we wanted to give it a shot. So we were out there for 4 years, and it's kind of funny because in a way we had to move east before we could go west. It seems counterintuitive, but it allowed us to get up on our own feet. It allowed us to be part of a new community that really expanded our horizons, say, where can we go if we want to go anywhere? Well, Alicia had a brother in San Diego. We were both being called to move out to San Diego. We sold 80% of our belongings. We packed up my Toyota Camry. We had the little hood on the top with all of our stuff, and we cruised out to San Diego. We said, let's just go see what happens. So I started with the new company there, KPMG, built some more experience, built a bigger network. And then this last year, we bought a home up in Lake Arrowhead. So now we're up in the mountains, the San Bernardino Mountains, and we both have our own businesses. But wanted to just show you kind of my journey across the country and how I got to where I am today.
Michael, we're not seeing your screen.
Okay. Let me see. Well, hopefully I was giving you a nice visual through my, no one can see your screen. Okay, thanks for chiming in.
No problem.
Awesome. All right, well, let me show you this beautiful map I put together based on that story. So anyway, these were the 6 stops I just told you about, and it was kind of ironic that we had to go east before we could go west, but those are all kind of the major places that have had an impact on both me and my wife's life. So let's talk a little bit more about the career side of things. And I don't want to beat a dead horse on this, but you'll see the education I had on the left there. As part of my master's program, I actually got some consulting experience. I was able to get some client work early on in my 20s, which was great. I took on that role at C.A.T.H. The beautiful thing about that role at C.A.T.H, being a client relations manager, was I got some sales experience, which in psychology, courses and programs, they don't necessarily teach you a lot about sales, but it's really important in any business you're in that you know the value you're providing to your clients, and then being able to speak about it confidently and all that good stuff. So working for a boutique, a small firm, really helped me today, now launching my own business and wearing multiple hats. But I kind of hit a plateau in my career there, and maybe some of you have experienced this in your own careers, or maybe you are right now, where you kind of see the writing on the wall a little bit, or you see like, I'm not getting all the development opportunities that maybe I want or need. So you have to kind of take your career, grab it by the horns and take ownership of it. So that's what I did. I joined KPMG, which was a step up into the big leagues. If you don't know what KPMG is, they're one of the big 4. So it's Deloitte, PwC, EY, and KPMG. They're big accounting firms, but they also have consulting branches. So as part of the people and change practice there, got some really good talent management, change management, and all in all, it really just increased my business acumen. I understood a little bit more how the finance function works in an organization, IT, HR, etc. After that, then though, I was like, okay, this was great experience, but I was on the road a lot of days, or a lot of weeks. It was Monday through Thursday being on the road. So I then said, all right, I want to change the pace of life. I want to start my own thing. And that's where I founded my own company, like I said, a year ago. So these were all the major touch points on my journey, quote unquote, catching leadership. And I took different elements along the way, and everything kind of builds upon each other. So it's like that famous Steve Jobs quote where it's, the dots, you can't connect them looking forward, you can only connect them looking backward. Well, looking backward, it's easy to see kind of the progression of how it all unfolded for me, and likely for you too, in whatever you're trying to pursue. With that being said, that's enough about me. I want to turn it over to my partner in crime, my sidekick. So Emma, do you want to go ahead and give a little bit of background on you?
Yeah, sure, thanks. So I just wanted to take a minute or two here just to say a little bit about me. So I'm currently going to graduate school over in Minnesota at Minnesota State University, Mankato. Looking to get my master's degree in IO psychology, hoping to graduate this upcoming spring. Before that, I got my undergrad degree over in Indiana, so spent a lot of time in the Midwest. And then as far as my work experience, I'm currently working with Michael as an intern, and that's been really fun. And I'm also getting some consulting experience actually at the same little firm that Michael mentioned on his journey over in Minnesota. And then before that, I spent some time working in HR. And then on a personal note, some things that I spend most of my time doing is running and biking. And then I like to do a lot of traveling and backpacking and some reading about different things as well.
Emma was a D1 athlete too, as a runner too. She's probably too modest to tell you that, but she's a great runner. So thank you, Emma, for that. Let's go ahead and dive in then to the major topic of today. And it would be an underservice if we didn't talk about the elephant in the room, which we all know and we're probably sick of hearing about, but there's a lot going on, whether it's with COVID, whether it's with the social movements that are going on. It's an election year, if you didn't notice. There's a lot going on, and this is really stretching leaders in new ways. And in some of those new ways, it can be a good thing because it opens up blind spots, it helps people get better. But on the flip side, it can be a lot to take on from a mental, social, and emotional level too. But one thing I really want to encourage you all as I go through the rest of the presentation, that first poll question that I put out there about consider myself a leader, we had 80% that said yes and 20% that said no. You all have opportunities to lead. Whether you consider yourself a quote unquote leader, in your title, it doesn't matter. We all have opportunities throughout our day to lead, and I want you to embrace that as we continue on through some of these topics. So it goes without saying that a leader's environment is changing. And I used this slide before COVID, and it's kind of a stupid joke, but I'm like, I need to make these arrows bigger because everything just keeps getting exacerbated and blown up. But what is changing about a leader's environment? Well, digitalization is on the rise, right? Think of how many virtual meetings you've been to in the last few months compared to how many you've been to in your whole life. I mean, it's wild how drastically that shift occurred. Disruptions. Every major institution right now is being disrupted. I don't care if you're in healthcare, if you're in banking with all the PPP loans, everything that's going on. Schools, they're trying to figure out what they're going to do this upcoming year. I mean, everything is being shook right now and disrupted in new ways. And then distractions. Distractions have always been there, but even now more than anything, think about how many times you get triggered by seeing a post online, whether it's a political post or someone's putting something out there. I mean, there's just so many distractions going on. So as a result, if those things are going up, some things must be coming down. And the simplicity of our life is definitely going down. And I joke about this, but everyone who's on this call right now, 20, 30 years from now, is probably going to be one of those older people who are going to say, I remember life before COVID. I remember what it was like when things were a little more simple and we could, shake hands and do these things. I hope some of those behaviors come back. I'm not saying that they're all going to go away forever, but things will change, and there's no doubt about it. Stability is down. That just goes with the disruption being up. Stability sounds really, really good right now. Unfortunately, there's not a lot to go around. And then connection. Even though we're all connected and plugged in virtually, we're missing something when it comes to that human interaction and really feeling connected, maybe in our communities or in our work environment. So those things are going down, and as a result, leadership development and the way we look at leadership needs to be re-examined. So as I was consultant, I would go around to these different organizations, I would attend a lot of different conferences, and I would learn a lot of really good leadership stuff. But I started picking up on these themes, and I started understanding that maybe there's some hidden aspects of leadership for whatever reason aren't really talked about as much. So typically when we think about leadership, we think about the things we can see on the surface. We think about the leadership behaviors. We think about that awesome speech that we heard someone give, or that difficult conversation. Maybe they had to let someone go in their organization. And these are all important skills to have, to have direct conversations and to lead with courage and inspiration. All really, really great stuff. What I noticed was the things that don't get talked about in leadership development that are equally, if not more important, are all the things below the surface. See, the things you can't see, the thoughts, the feelings, the motivations, and the mental health of these leaders. A lot of times we think of leaders as being these superheroes. They can just take on all of these things and transform organizations and bring in high volume of sales and all these things, but it's a lot going on up here, and a lot of times they don't have that release or that mindfulness practice or whatever it might be that can keep them centered, keep them grounded, and give them the longevity and the sustainability to keep leading. So I thought, why aren't people talking about this? Is it in a corporate setting? It's not, it's not the right fit. We don't want to talk about feelings and thoughts, but we know how much that impacts our day-to-day behaviors and the way that we show up and speak to other people. So all of this kind of got me thinking, all right, maybe I need to find my own voice and have a perspective on this. And I need to do it in my own authentic way. And that's what led me to writing the book, Catching Leadership, that just came out this March. And the catch and release model is the core of Catching Leadership. So it's a 6-step model. We're going to go into that in a little bit here. But that release part is really the differentiator in this book. And that really gets at that stuff that's below the iceberg that we need to start talking about in more corporate settings, be a little bit more open to mindfulness and self-reflection, forgiveness, learning how to unlearn, staying agile, those types of things. So I use fishing metaphors, and I'll go into a few of them here in a little bit. You do not need to know anything about fishing at all. And in fact, if you don't know anything about fishing, you'll probably even enjoy the book that much more, because you'll get great leadership advice, but you'll also learn a thing or two about fishing along the way from my stories in there too. The other piece about this too is when I was launching my business, I knew that I needed something to differentiate myself. Being a YP, sometimes it can be challenging when you start getting into your own head about, I'm too young. Who am I to write a book? I'm a leader in my early 30s, you know, someone's gonna tell me I need gray hair or whatever. When you put your heart and soul into something and you put pen to paper and you put those words down, it gives you confidence and you find your voice, because it's one thing to have opinions and thoughts. It's another thing to write it down and communicate it in a way that other people can take something from it. So this process, I know that it's helping other people and it's helping organizations. It really helped me on my own journey too. So let's talk about that model, the catch and release model. As I mentioned, there's 6 steps. There's 34 different leadership constructs within the model. Think of these as competencies. Some of you may have competencies within your organization. They are defined, basically constructs of a typical or a important leadership behavior that you'd expect leaders to be showing. And what I wanted to do was not only just say, this is leadership according to Michael, here's this nice image and these 34 constructs that he writes about. I wanted to provide value to my reader right off the bat. So I created a free leadership assessment that goes hand in hand with the book. So think of this as like StrengthsFinder. You take it on the front end, you see where you're in a low, medium, and high in each of these 6 steps. And then as you dive into the book, you can customize your own journey and where you need to double down and spend more time. And hopefully it can help identify some of those blind spots for you. And also help you feel confident and strong about some of the areas that, oh yeah, I am a great leader in this dimension. So let me walk you through the fishing metaphors and the part of this model. The first step is called cast your line. And this is all about going out on the dock. Before you're a leader and bringing other people on your boat, you need to practice what you preach. So these are the fundamentals of leadership. It's learning how to cast your line. You're going to snag sometimes, and it's not going to be pretty, and you're not going to just go out there and be a pro right away. But you need to learn and grow your strengths and understand your development areas before you're able to really help other people. So whether you're fly fishing, whether you're fishing for catfish or bass or whatever, you need to practice your casting techniques and go out and cast your line and get in the game. The second step then, once you've quote unquote kind of mastered that, is to attract diverse anglers. Anglers is another word for fishermen, if you didn't know that. And in my book, it's synonymous with leaders as well. But basically what this means is now you've started showing some leadership behaviors, you're in the game, you now are responsible as a leader of who you bring in your boat with you. Sometimes you have a choice, sometimes you don't if you have direct reports. But what I'm trying to really push forward in this step is, who do you surround yourself with? Is it people who cast their line just like you, fish exactly the same way you do? You know you're gonna have a good time with them, you're probably gonna agree with them on everything, but it's not going to teach you what you need to learn. It's not going to teach them what they need to learn. So you need to attract diverse anglers, people who are still motivated to lead, but maybe they share different perspectives than you. Maybe they have different political preferences than you, or even leadership styles. Maybe they're strong in one leadership category, but you know, you're not, but it can be a mutually beneficial relationship. So really be strategic about the relationships, the mentors, and the people you bring onto your leadership boat with you throughout your career. The third step then is tie their knot. So you've brought these individuals under your boat with you. They're hungry for leadership. They want to learn. But as a leader, are you okay with putting your own pole down to tie someone else's knot? This creates a lot of cognitive dissonance, because if you are a rock star and you can bring in a ton of sales and you're great when you're just in your lane and responsible for the thing that you need, that's awesome. But now, oh, I have to put this down. And we all know what it's like when you need to train someone new on the job and you're like, this would be easier if I just did it myself. But if you never tie their knot, you can't scale as an organization. And it's so important to give them the opportunities to get into the leadership game themselves too. But after you've tied their knot, that's not it. You then have to coach their cast. And from the poll that we had earlier today, it was the second most popular choice was, I want to coach and develop other people. That's why you want to lead. Well, great coaching is a requirement of great leadership, period. But sometimes leaders, when they're coaches, they try and coach other people to the way that they fish or the way that they lead. So I'm going to coach you on my strengths. If I like to go fishing in the shallows for bass, that's what I'm going to try and force upon you. But maybe actually you're going to be better fishing in the deep water for catfish, and that's where your zone of genius is. So how can you, as a leader, as a coach to their individual unique strengths and development areas? Coach their cast, not your own. Then we move up to the 5th step, which is honor their catch. So this is kind of a funny spot in the leadership cycle where you've spent all this time tying their knots, getting them in the game, and now they're actually super successful. And maybe they're even more successful than you. Maybe they're a little bit smarter than you. As a leader, are you okay with that? Can you give them the praise and encourage them on their journey to take on bigger things, even if it means that they're surpassing whatever you've already accomplished? A lot of times this is where the ego comes in, right? Where leaders are like, I have good people on my team, but I got to keep them under here. Great leaders don't do that. They don't put a cap on a person's potential because it's convenient for them. They want that person to be successful. And if it means leaving their teams, then they honor that decision and they try and still help them out. And the last step is probably my favorite, but this is the release. And the release is letting go, right? Letting that fish go. You took a picture, but you don't necessarily need to take on all the baggage that came with it. Maybe you hooked yourself along the way. Maybe you missed a couple fish along the way. Maybe something wasn't pleasant or a storm came by. Whatever it might be in your leadership practice, how can you let go? Stay nimble, stay mindful, and then be able to start the whole process over again, go back to the dock and brush up on your leadership skills. So that is the model in a nutshell. But what I want to do is now talk about it less from a fishing standpoint and more from an organizational standpoint or a business standpoint. So what does this mean for you and what does it mean for your organization? Well, the first step, the cast your line, understand your skill set and lead by example. Think of this as your leadership 101. You have new managers who are at your organization. What kind of skills and training are you offering them? We know that it's a very difficult transition from individual contributor to a management position. It's hard. It's not the same skill set. So as an organization, are you providing those new leaders with the right amounts of resources, surrounding them with people and opportunities, stretch assignments, etc.? So that's really kind of the beginning of setting up a nice leadership program within your organization, having that new manager program. Then we move on to the second step, attract diverse anglers, diversify and challenge your understanding of the world. This is all about diversity and inclusion. And there couldn't be a better time for organizations to really be talking about this and being real with one another, having the difficult conversations, questioning, are our hiring practices fair? Are we as tolerant as maybe we think we are? Are we as open and inviting as we think we are? So really looking at your diversity and inclusion program and seeing if there's any enhancements that can be made there. The third step, tie their knot, this is all about onboarding. What's your onboarding strategy at your organization? The research shows that people make a decision based on whether they want to stay with the company or not long-term within the first 3 months, maybe 6 months tops. So if you're not giving people the warm fuzzies at the beginning and they don't feel like it's an environment that they can grow, they have opportunities, they like the feel and the culture, they're already looking for their next opportunity. And this isn't a millennial thing. This isn't wow, they don't have any loyalty to the company. It's, hey, organizations, up your game. Onboard your talent better so that they don't have a reason to leave and they want to stick around. The fourth step, coach their cast. This is all about building a coaching culture. So I'm working with a client right now in Chicago, and they are a super nice client. They have a nice culture, but they don't always like to have the direct feedback conversations that they need to help guide performance and keep people accountable. So I'm going through a coaching model with them right now and helping them interject different areas within their culture that they can beef up their coaching as a whole, so that all their leaders now have the knowledge, tools, and abilities to do it, and it's also being reinforced through their performance reviews. But coaching is such a crucial part of leadership. Then we move on to honor their catch. This is all about employee recognition. And yes, it can be monetary, it can be your bonuses, your compensation, but it goes beyond that. We all know what it's like when someone writes us a handwritten note, gives us a pat in the back for a job well done. As leaders, you should never just assume, well, they're doing a good job. Like, take the extra time to write that email that took you 5 minutes, but it made their entire month because they now feel appreciated. So what are you doing as an organization with your employee recognition? Maybe it's doing an employee spotlight once a month in the newsletter, whatever it might be. Maybe it is bonuses. Maybe you need to examine compensation, but make sure that you are honoring people's catch in your organization. Last but not least, with the release, this is all about your wellness and your mindfulness programs in your organization. Now more than ever, people are struggling. Anxiety is up, depression's going up, burnout is up, people are trying to navigate financially, maybe they have new troubles or challenges, whatever it might be. Do you have any mindfulness opportunities or resources for your employees to partake in? Do you have any wellness programs that you incentivize them to stay healthy and to have a sustainable career in your organization? So that's the model kind of taken out of the fishing element and then brought into a more practical HR organizational side of things. And with that being said, I want you to think right now, and in the chat box, I want you to either put one of these responses in which area has the greatest room for growth in your organization. Is it the Leadership 101 new manager training? Is it diversity and inclusion? Is it onboarding, C? Is it D, coach their cast, building a coaching culture? Is it E, employee recognition? Or is it F, release, that mindfulness and wellness side of it? So go ahead and put in the chat box A, B, C, D, E, or F. There we go, we're getting some that are coming in. Okay, please feel free to continue doing that, but I will move on for the sake of time. So I want to wrap up the catching leadership portion of this and then move into a YP section of it more specifically. But this is the last little exercise I want you to partake in. It's called the Legacy of Leadership Framework. What I want you to do right now is draw these 3 circles down on a piece of paper or a whiteboard, whatever you have handy. Achieving results, developing others, and developing yourself. And then I want you to think about it. Where do you spend most of your time throughout your day as a leader? Put a little X. Maybe it's in just one of these categories. Maybe it's in the overlap. Maybe it's right in the middle of all 3. But I want you to think really hard about where you spend most time, what's most comfortable to you. And the reason why I want you to do that is because there are what I call comfort zones of leadership that we all need to be aware of. So I have 3 comfort zones. The first one is the zone of autonomy. So if you put that X and that overlap between your achieving results, you getting things done, and you're also developing yourself, and that's kind of your sweet spot, that can sometimes be mistaken for effective leadership. Any of these zones can be mistaken for leadership, but really great leadership is the combination of all 3. So zone of autonomy are these individuals who are very independent, get things done. I like to stay in my lane. I'm taking care of myself. I'm developing, I'm reading books, I'm doing all these things. But when it comes to leading other people, man, I would rather not. That's a little too much work, and I just want to stay kind of in my silo over here. Well, that's not really great leadership, is it? Zone of dependence are the individuals who can get things done, and they're also developing others along the way. Maybe they're getting good collective results as a team, but they are completely neglecting their own development. They aren't taking any time for themselves, and they're probably on the brink of burnout. Well, that's not effective leadership either. It's not sustainable leadership, that's for sure. The last comfort zone is the zone of development. So you really have a passion for helping other people. You love, all this stuff, developing yourself, reading as much as you can, watching TED Talks, and you love coaching other people. But organizations also need people to achieve results, right? So you do still have to show up and get things done and be held accountable to certain metrics. So it's easy to say, I'm a great leader, I care about people. That's awesome, big part of it, right? But you also need to get some of the tangible things done too that can be measured within the corporate goals and whatnot. So I want you to think about this model and what area maybe offers you greater room for growth. And as you dive into the book and as you dive into the model, you can then focus on which areas you need to really double down on. Okay, so that was the catch and release model, but now I want to talk about you as YPs, in particular, really seeking to lead, and some advice and some words of wisdom that I have for you based on my own failures, my own experiences. Embrace your age. Embrace it. You can't change it, right? All you can do is accept it. But a lot of times, and I'll tell you a story about a professor who I had back in the day, who said, you can't get into coaching until you have gray hair. So he's planting this seed in my mind as a young 24-year-old, 25-year-old, however old I was. And now I'm thinking, that's my dream, that's my passion in life, and I have to wait 20, 25 years before I can go do it. It was some of the worst advice I ever had in my life. So instead, embrace your age. You can't change it, but it does offer you some advantages. Just because you're young, yes, you do need to grow some experience and you need to be willing to listen. I'm not telling you to go into your next meeting guns blazing and saying, hey, listen to me, I'm young and I have all this energy stuff. But you definitely don't want to look at it like it's a handicap to you, because you do bring in new ideas, you do bring in new energy, and you do bring in new perspectives that your organization really does value. So however old you are, embrace your age. And this doesn't just mean when you're young, it also means when you're older too. Don't spend your life wishing you were younger or wishing you were older. Be cool with where you're at right now. As a YP, don't wait to be called on. Find your voice and raise your hand. My brother gave me great advice when I was going to Iowa. I was a little nervous going from a small town in Cascade. Now I'm going to a Big Ten university. And he said, Michael, whatever size class you're in, whether it's a big lecture hall, whether it's a small breakout discussion room, whatever it is, make your presence felt. Whatever that means to you, make your presence felt. And those words still resonate with me today. That no matter where you're at, it doesn't mean you have to always be the most vocal person. But if you're going to be sitting in that chair, if you're going to be, spending your time at that organization, make sure your presence is felt. Bring a positive change, a positive demeanor to it, and don't wait for someone to call on you. No one is going to call on you and say, I think it's perfect time for you to go take this next career opportunity. They're not going to. You have to take that on yourself, and you have to be willing to raise your hand, even though it might feel uncomfortable or nervous, to get your voice out there, because you do have great ideas as a YP. Focus on what you can control. This is very, very difficult. It looks easy, but it's hard. The mental mistake that a lot of people make is whenever an event happens in their life. So maybe it's, COVID, maybe it's whatever. They lost their job, for instance, something like that. They immediately take the mental shortcut to the negative outcome. So an event happened, I lost my job. This must be something about me. I'm terrible, I'm awful, I'm a bad worker, something like that. But regardless of whatever events happen in your life, you always, always, always get to control your reaction to it. And you can take a negative event and make a positive outcome if you react to it the right way. So Jack Canfield had this equation, E plus R equals O. It's not E equals O. Your event doesn't equal your outcome. It's your event plus the reaction that you actually do get to control that equals the outcome and the experiences in your life. So make sure that you take that deep breath whenever you're feeling your blood boiling or you're dealing with something, and just saying, all right, I can change the story right now. I can focus on how I react to this, and ultimately it will make it better. This is a saying that I actually took from Alicia's grandpa, who was a very successful grocery store owner, and he built a lot of grocery stores way back in the day. But he said, dream big, do it now. And I don't think I could be a bigger fan of this saying than I am today. If I would have listened to some of the advice that I had received about waiting, wait, I wouldn't have written a book right now. I wouldn't be launching my own business. I wouldn't be having the impact that I am on the lives and the companies that I am. Start today. I'm not telling you to do something reckless. I'm not telling you to be impulsive. What I'm telling you is You have to know what you want in life, and you need to plant seeds now and start taking steps to make your dreams become a reality. This picture of the dream catcher is very symbolic to me too. We put that up. I know I talked about the Toyota Camry and heading out west. We actually put a dream catcher up in our rear view mirror as we were driving out there. We had no idea. We're just, you know, young kids, married. We're driving out to California. We're chasing our dreams. Maybe it's foolish, maybe it's not, but we decided that we wanted to do it. And who knows, you know, if we'll stay here forever, if not, that doesn't matter. But the fact that we took a risk on ourselves and that we were willing to dream big and take action now has been paying a lot of dividends. So I would encourage you today to get serious about it, journal about it, think about it, talk to someone about it. What are your dreams? And what can you do right now to help those come true even sooner? All right, I want to pass it over. I feel like I've been talking a lot, but I want to pass it over to Emma to go over kind of some resources, and in particular that leadership assessment that I talked about, that is the CARLI. So go ahead, Emma, and lead the way here.
Okay. So first, I just want to talk about an extra training that is actually located on YouTube. It's about mindfulness. So this training kind of goes through the GRIN method, which Michael discusses in his book. And just a little thing with that is it kind of just walks you through ways to identify things that you're grateful for, things that you need to release, some affirmations, and helping you kind of build that self-confidence, as well as then kind of focusing on any new intentions. So that can be really helpful, especially during these uncertain times that we're currently going through. Another, skipping down to the bottom, video training that he has available is about leading through uncertainty. So this is another about 30-minute training, and you just have to simply send an email to Michael at michael@catchingleadership.com, and he'll be more than happy to send that link over to you. And this can really be helpful, kind of like I just said, like during these uncertain times, and help give you some more confidence on how you can step up your leadership and help provide during these pandemics and any other uncertain times that might bring. So then jumping back into the middle with the leadership assessment that was mentioned earlier. So this is the CARLI assessment, which asks some questions about the model that we walked through a little bit ago. So this is free on the website, and we're actually going to talk a little bit more about that on the next slide. So jumping into the CARLI, like I said, this follows the model, and it takes about 15 minutes to complete it. There's small constructs that are included in each dimension, and we didn't really jump into all of those, but like Michael mentioned, those are kind of like the competencies and behaviors. So for example, with the first step in the model, the cast your line, looking at behaviors like adaptability and decision making. So those are some examples of those 34 subconstructs like within that model. So the assessment itself, like I said, takes about 15 minutes to complete, even though it is 120 questions. It goes by pretty quick, and it's very informative for yourself to kind of see what areas you may need to work on. So the study, or this exam itself, has been piloted by over 100 leaders and reviewed by subject matter experts. And then an important thing is for your results after you take it, write them down, and then with the next slide we'll talk a little bit more about interpreting those. So as you can see here, this is a little bit of an example of what your results page will look like. The one in the left corner with the boxes with the blue and the green, that's kind of what you'll find on the website, where you can go and learn more about your score and that construct in particular. And then the paragraphs at the bottom, that's an individual CARLI report that kind of explains more about what developing and discovering means. So looking more at scores, each of your scores is compared to the leaders who have taken it. Most of them are executive leaders, so it's important to not get discouraged by this. And I've taken the CARLI myself right before I started my internship with Michael, and I was discovering for all of them. But like I said, don't be discouraged by that. Since we're all young professionals and not all executive leaders, like, we should have room to grow. So it's just kind of important and eye-opening that you can have something at this point in your life to kind of identify and look at different areas of focus, and attending things like this today that bring attention to it is really helpful.
Yeah, thank you for that, Emma. I would like to just really reinforce that point too. This is one data point. I think sometimes as humans, we love taking these types of assessments and then giving ourselves a label of whether we're good or bad. And maybe it's something from early on when we used to get A's and B's in classrooms, whatever. But the point of this is whether you're high or whether you're low on these different dimensions, you have a gift now of something that you can concentrate on. And these are all things that are not personality based. So it's important whenever you take an assessment to know if it's a personality assessment, which is relatively stable over time. You're not really going to change a whole lot if you're introvert to an extrovert overnight. That's not going to happen, right? But these are skill-based or competency-based assessments. So these are things that if you work with a coach, if you have some leadership programs at your organization, if you watch some TED Talks, read some books, you can move the needle on these dimensions. And I wanted to make sure that it was a skills-based approach and not a personality-based approach. But it's very interesting. I think you'll get a lot out of it. The questions in there hit at some of these different constructs, like Emma said, and it will definitely make you think about leadership a little bit differently. And it's only 15 minutes to take, so please do check that out. So next up, I do want to give a little plug for the book. So it just came out in March, and the paperback is $19.75. The ebook is $9.99. I am working on an audiobook, but it may not be out for a few months yet. I still have to record different sections of it. But this book will help you a lot, and I want you to use it as a guide. Of course, I want you to read the whole thing. I would love that, right? But I also understand that people are busy, leaders are busy. So if you take the CARLI up front and you see a section where you're a little bit low or a little bit high on, and you want to skip around in this book and use it as a guide and read chapter 4 because that's where you really want to concentrate, that is totally fine. It's kind of a guide your own adventure through the catch and release model. And I just want you to take something away from it and then pay it forward, right? Talk about it, tell someone about it. I hope it helps you. That's really why I wrote this in the first place, is just to help this next generation of leaders really step up to the plate and learn more about themselves and do a better job. So please check it out. It's on Amazon. If you already have the book, or if you do end up purchasing the book, I'd also ask if you could leave a review. They really, really help me as I am on this virtual tour, just getting the word out, talking to people, leaving reviews, posting on social media, all of it is super, super helpful. And with that being said, perfect segue, right? I am on Instagram, Facebook, I have a page, I have a group. LinkedIn's probably my most active platform, and it kind of makes sense with the leadership development space that I'm in. And then also the website is where you can find the assessment itself too. So with all of that being said, I just want to say thank you so much for the time. I really enjoy connecting. I'm going to be sticking around. I would be happy to answer any questions that you have about the model, something you're dealing with, any comments, thoughts, questions. You can either leave them in the chat box or you can ask them out loud, and I will stick around and answer those. Thank you.
While we wait for some questions, we are actually going to give a signed copy of Michael's book away to attendees. So if I can get my shared screen to work here for a second, I will do my wheel of names. If anybody's seen that, it's kind of fun. Let me see here. Let's see what everybody sees. You can look at my cute kid first. All right. So we've got our wheel of names, and we will generate a winner.
All right, so Ryan, what I want you to do is I want you to follow up with me. So it's michael@catchingleadership.com. Send me an email with the mailing address you want your copy. I'm gonna write you a little personal note in it and send it off into the mail to you, and you should probably have it within a week or so. But congratulations on getting a free copy, and thank you for attending.
All right, let's see what's in the chat box.
Well, Michael, I'd like to ask you a question. This is Barry. Earlier, you mentioned about making sure that maybe you're recognized as a leader in your organization. If someone feels that they're not, what advice do you give them to put that into motion?
The way that I actually look at it, Barry, is kind of a leader's responsibility to honor other people's. It is good for organizations to honor their leaders too, right? So it does go hand in hand. But really the perspective I was taking on it is, how can you as a leader, even if you feel like you're so busy, you're swamped, and you're making all these decisions, still take the time to tell that person, great job, write that note down, send that email with a little extra, give them a pat on the back, give them recognition, during a presentation that you're giving something like this, because we all know that that type of gesture can just do really, really great things for employee engagement as a whole. But I think it's easy for leaders to just forget that, and they expect, well, I pay my employees well, and I expect them to do a good job. But as a leader, you got to go beyond that, because they'll get used to that, and you just got to be personable with them and honor them. Who else has a question? Anything? I know sometimes it's hard to ask a question in front of a big group like this, but if not, if you don't have one, I am always available. You can email me, like I said, michael@catchingleadership.com. Please post, like I said at the beginning, anything that you feel comfortable with from a social media standpoint. Give me a follow. Check out the book, though. That's really the most important thing. I guarantee you, regardless where you're at in your career, regardless what industry you're in, there is some valuable nuggets of information and leadership advice in there that you will enjoy and will resonate with you in an authentic and unique way, because I tried to make it different. I didn't want to just write another cookie cutter leadership book. I think there's enough of those out there. So please do check it out.
All right. Hey, Michael and Emma, thank you very much. We appreciate it. Thanks everybody for jumping on the call today. Make sure if you do have questions, shoot those over to Michael or Emma. Take a look at the book, give them a follow like you mentioned. We appreciate you spending time with us today, Michael. Look forward to next month. Our speaker for August will be Justin Heffner, CEO of Grand River Medical Group. And then in September, we will have RJ Montez from DePaco. So thanks again, everybody, for coming today. Michael, Emma, thank you again. And have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. See you, everyone.